We all know the EB-5 program is just taking off like wildfire, and I know that your firm, AmLaw, has had an incredible amount of success with EB-5. Could you spend some time and just educate us about the nuances of the program, some of the differences between maybe a direct and indirect program, and how a client can really best benefit from all the power of the EB-5 program?
The EB-5 program is a visa category that allows overseas investors to make an investment in the United States of either $500,000 or $1 million and relatively quickly receive a green card for him or herself as well as spouse and children. There are two investment levels for an EB-5, $500,000 or $1 million. The differing levels are a result of where the company is located and the jobs are being created. If it's in an area of high unemployment, which means 50% or more than the national average, or a rural area, then you can qualify by investing only $500,000. If the investment isn't located in one of those two areas, then the minimum investment for the investor will be $1 million. The EB-5 program has become so popular for a number of reasons. First of all, it allows an investor new to the United States to get involved with a project without taking an active role in the business. No knowledge of the U.S. market, no knowledge is required, or experience in any kind of business field in the U.S. is required. The investor can make an investment as a passive limited partner and continue his or her activities overseas while at the same time moving along the path to receiving a green card in the U.S. It's also relatively easy to understand, and a lot of solid projects are involved with EB-5 investments that make investors feel more secure with their investment. One appealing side of the EB-5 visa is also the fact that the investor does not need to own or manage an overseas company. Unlike an L1 or EB-1, where the investor does need to be an executive at an overseas company, with an EB-5, the investor can invest directly as an individual without any kind of requirement to have an overseas company. Each year, 10,000 visas are allocated under the EB-5 program, and up to now, we have not come close at all to reaching that 10,000 quota limit. However, this year we are anticipating that there will be limitations imposed on Chinese investors just because of the sheer numbers involved with investors coming from mainland China. As a result, it's quite possible that in this year, 2014, there will be limits and a waiting time will be implemented for investors from mainland China. This should not affect any other investors from any other countries, but it does show the degree of popularity that the EB-5 program has had among investors throughout the world. Given the growing popularity of the EB-5 program, we certainly recommend to investors that they make a decision to participate in the EB-5 sooner rather than later in the fiscal year. The U.S. government operates on a fiscal calendar, which means they go from October 1st until September 30th in terms of calculating numbers for the visa quota. There are two main paths that an EB-5 investor can take. One could be a so-called direct investment. Under a direct investment, the EB-5 investor is putting his or her money generally into a smaller project as a limited partner or shareholder in that company. It's a smaller project. Generally, there's more control given the size of the project and the role of the investor as well. In addition, the investor in a direct investment generally participates more in the profitability of the company and is able to take a more active role and receive more of the upside of the company as it grows and becomes more profitable. The other option is the so-called regional center one. Regional centers probably account for 85% of EB-5 petitions. Therefore, it's very popular. That's due to a number of reasons. One is that the regional center is generally a larger project requiring dozens, if not hundreds, of investors. That gives a certain degree of security oftentimes to investors given the size of the project. In addition, the investor plays a more passive role and really doesn't get involved at all in day-to-day operations or development of the project. In addition, the regional center option, although it gives passive participation to the investors, there is a very limited amount of participation in the profitability. And as a general rule, investors in a regional center project only receive minimal nominal dividends as part of their investment. When making an EB-5 investment, the investor needs to invest the full amount, whether it's $500,000 or $1 million, in advance of filing the immigration petition. One of the more challenging aspects of an EB-5 petition is verifying what's called the source of funds for the investor. What that means is that we need to go through the investor's financial documentation to verify the source from which they derived or earned the money that they'll be investing in the EB-5 project. Depending on that source, we need to collect an amount of documentation and evidence to support the fact that this money was legally earned, all necessary taxes were paid, and that the money can legally be transferred then from the home country over to the United States. How exactly we do that depends on each investor's situation, whether it's from the sale of some real estate, whether it's earnings from a business, or just savings that were accumulated over the course of time. That will dictate how we structure and what evidence and documentation we need to get together for the investor's petition.